I'm responsible for a festival program, and it's a pleasure to open this coffee with, which we are going to hold every week. And this a concept in order to analyze further in depth the films that have been premiered the day before. So some of these questions that are always remain behind in the Q&A, and uh, let things come down. And here, a common link is a war, revolution, the memory of war. Three films that are very different and aesthetic and conceptual level, but they all address something connected to wars, uprisings. That is, to what extent can we uh, can we accept or believe in the prevalence of film of armies of armed forces, and here we have similar proposals with the co-director of Guerra y Pache, Our Men, Mon Legionnaire from Rachel Lang, and Liborio of Nina Martinez in New Waves. Very interesting. Three differences that are very different among each other, but that I'm sure they will allow for a very interesting discussion. I would like to start from something very a key issue in Liborio, which is something you have to. In the case of Liborio, this is a film that's fundamental in its analysis of a period of the Dominican Republic when they were really trying to liberate themselves from the chains of colonialism. I would like to ask you, Nino, what was your historical study in order to present such a charismatic work as Liborio? Well, thank you very much to Seville for giving me the chance of premiering Liborio in Spain. Well, the process followed two different paths. On the one hand, starting to read everything that had been written on the topic. Unfortunately, our history has been dominated by a classist and a racist bias. All our history and history such as that of Liborio have not uh, been much written about. There were oral stories about that. There were there was some written history of Liborio, but everything in a negative manner. He was illiterate. He was a symbol of the backwardness of the country. And I started to read uh, works from sociologists and anthropologists that had addressed the topic, but I also considered the experiences. I started getting in touch and getting involved with the liberist communities to take part in their rituals, take part in the way of life, try to understand why they believe. And I think that these two paths were the ones that led me to Liborio. We did not intend to make a historic film, but of course it's based on real history, and we didn't want to sell an absolute truth or to make a pamphlet or defend take a historical side or biopic, but it's difficult to address a historical character of such a magnitude in the country because everyone has his own opinion in their minds, and so it's so twofold that it's impossible always to please everyone. And we decided to provide all these multiple approaches, and so leave leave it for everyone open to build their own history of Liborio. Thank you very much, Nino. For me, there is a fundamental issue in Our Men of Rachel Lang, which is her own personal work in order to understand what's this idea of contemporary armies, people that live in a territory that it's not theirs, but at the same time hold a very important responsibility. I think that Our Man is a film that opens a complex debate now that also triggers in present times very gut the relationships from the guts and and trying to fight from the cliches, from the stereotypes. I would like Rachel to us to share with the audience was your personal journey to understand who are these people, these men that you depict in your film?
Yeah. So
Bien,
I did a lot of research,
bueno, hice
documentary
mucha
research
investigación
to
documental
meet people in
para,
Germany.
para
So
encontrarme, entrevistarme
it came
directamente
10
con personas y con
ago
familias,
to
porque
visit
esto
in Corsica
empecé hace ya
because I
10
wanted to
años
do
a entrevistar, a reunirme con
a
familias
movie
en
about a
Córcega,
couple and how to
porque
live in a
quería,
couple in a so difficult
porque
place, the French Legion,
sobre el
where
ejército y
more than
también los
150
despliegues
nationality.
en países
So all the women from all over the world
para
are
en
joining
distintos países para la Legión extranjera francesa,
their
que tiene
husband
a
or
personas
discover
que tiene
food
miembros de
in the island
150
in Corsica.
países y entonces, claro, también sus
And
parejas vienen a esta
I
pequeña
needed
isla, a
to
Córcega, y
investigate
quería
the women
investigar
aspect a lot
el
because
aspecto
as I am
femenino,
personally in the French army, I knew a lot about this
porque
professional stuff, the
en el
military stuff,
ejército
but
francés
I
sí que
didn't know
conozco a
about
muchos
what was to
profesionales, a
be
muchos
for when
militares,
women stay
pero lo
in
que
a
no sabía
little
que era para
island
una mujer
waiting for
extranjera
the
estar en una
men
pequeña, vivir
with
en una isla
children,
pequeña
doing
esperando por sus
everything all the time.
maridos, con sus hijos y
So
encargándose de
yeah,
todo
I met a lot of family
continuamente
during
y
years.
me encontré,
From
me reuní
all
con
the
muchas de
history,
ellas
I write
y,
fiction.
y a
So
partir de la historia intento
I
escribir
choose
ficción.
two couples that
Escogí dos
I bring
parejas
from
que, que,
beginning
que,
in the army, and the couple begin in the army, and then
que
I
como
followed the
esta
couple in
pareja
like 2 years
se,
to
las
see
conocí en el
how the couple
ejército y las seguí
could
durante
survive in
2 años
this
para ver cómo podía
specific
sobrevivir una pareja
place where the
en este
death
lugar
is all around over
específico, en
and
este entorno
when the
tan
women
concreto en
doesn't
el
know
cual
if
la muerte
the
está
husband will
presente
come
siempre
back.
y las
So
esposas, las mujeres no saben si sus parejas van a volver. Thank you very much, Rachel. In the case of Guerra y Pache, we find like a separated, bifurcated movie which shows first the memories of war with really an archive work which is really impressive, and then this update in terms of the contemporary armies. I would like to ask Massimo Arnolfi, how was your work in the archives? How was your research and the intensity of this discrimination of the material? How were you able to separate, to identify, to choose the material that is the cutoff? How did you do that? Well, archives are a wonderful heritage, but it's a huge. And in our case, we started from the first war that was filmed. The Luca Comerio was the first cameraman that filmed any war. It was in the War of Libya. Well, the Crimea War had been already recorded before, but it had not been done in such an organic and systematic manner. In the case of Luca Comerio and the Italian invasion in, in, in Libya starts what became systematic from World War One on. And so this couldn't be, it couldn't be otherwise. That is was our starting point. It was the first meeting between war and cinema, if you can say. And from that starting point, the film makes a whole journey along the 20th century that is that of course cannot be comprehensive, cannot include everything. But in any case, it reconstructs the different stages of a series of the period, because clearly our film addresses and researches cinema and images, how important images are in our contemporary
quiere ser
times.
una investigación sobre la importancia de las imágenes en la sociedad.
And in final analysis, all our work in archives, the film is a great homage, a recognition to memory and and to how important it is to keep
Y por
remembering,
supuesto,
even
como tú
when
bien
if
decías,
this
también esta es una
implies
película que
filming wars.
homenajea a los archivos. Por desgracia es que esto no para a la guerra, la importancia de la memoria, de descubrir la memoria, desafortunadamente no ha parado la guerra.
And just one last thing, the archives in our film are part of the film. That is, we
Nosotros
don't just use
no
the archives, we
utilizamos, no
walk
usamos
into
los
the
archivos,
buildings
nosotros entramos en los
and they
archivos.
become part of the film. And for example, we go to the Syntec in,
Y no es por
and it's
casualidad
not
que la
by chance
película
that the film
acabe en
finishes
los
at
archivos de
the
Lausana,
archives
donde se
of
conserva el
Lausanne,
archivo de la
where
Cruz Roja
they preserve
Internacional.
the files, the archives of the International Red Cross, because we really research how the images are produced today. We take we have images with a cell phone instantaneously, but the International Red
Como
Cross was the
La
first
Cruz Roja
institution that
Italiana, la Cruz
really
Roja
worked
Internacional,
on
perdón, es la
filming
que se ha
wars
encargado,
and
¿no?, de
battles.
lidiar con las cosas provocadas por la guerra.
And,
Y
and,
esto,
by, and
esto
also
nació con
the
la
Red
batalla
Cross
de Solferino en el
was
siglo
started after the
XIX.
Battle of Solferino in Italy in 1856, and the film
Y
and,
como dice el
and
cierre de la
what
película, el
the end of the
futuro
film
ya
says, the
está
future is
escrito
already
y en esa
written,
película
and
hay
in
estas
this film,
imágenes.
it's written with images of the past. Thank you much, Massimo. Please feel free to raise your hands, ask questions. Just tell me and interrupt us whenever you find it necessary. I would like to ask Nina Martinez Sosa about something that, for me, it's crucial in Liborio, which is this narrative that is like very unstoppable. That is from the, it's like from the guts. We have to remember something, and this is for the has been editor of Mr. Rosales, and I would like ask you for the tempo, with the rhythm. How did you work on that idea that's fundamental in Liborio? How did you handle the tempo of the film? Well, I believe that in the Caribbean we have a way of living time which is very special. Please, and I wanted this to be reflected on the film. That is, I worked very much with the authors in the in how to manage looks and silence, and we worked very much on what I call the Kurachov effect. That is, this that you have this neutral take that depends on where you focus. It may mean one thing or another. And when I said Kuleshov, they had to lower the intensity of their performance, and we tried this special timing. Especially, you can feel, especially among the farmers, that they are the only ones that really have time to stop and to breathe nature and to live nature, how to translate it to this audiovisual language. This is the question was herself with Oscar Duran, the photographer, Margarita Ponce, how to bring this into the film. And so at the end of the day, we wanted to keep this dialogue first between nature and humans, between information, that is text, and the nothing in the everyday life. And then in the makeup, we really organize this dialogue, and this is how we achieve this specific tempo you can find in the film that conveys to some extent uh, how these people live time, and before it was even more, because a century ago this need for action and this for dialogue of filling life with things that we have today was not did not exist, and this is something, well, but basically there was a process, and what we try to do, Liborio, is an attempt to address popular religion, religious events at a very special historic moment in our country, the first North American invasion, the first time the farmers started to leave the rural areas to and migrate to the cities. This is when capitalism reaches our country and how it affects properties and real estate ownership. And I think that all these different paths led us to do the film the way we have done it. Well, thank you very much, Nino. I would like to ask Rachel Lang on the work and the construction of the characters, and how were you able to convey to the authors or to the characters you establish that are really impregnated of reality. It's a very, it's full of emotions. It's very apparently these emotions may be brutal, but at the end of it, they are really tender. And I would like to ask Rachel, how was the work process that is combining actors that are well known, such as David, with other ones? How was your work in order to make them understand, to make the actors and actresses understand the soul you wanted to imprint in the characters?
Yes.
Bueno,
There are two
sí,
different social classes in
hay
the
dos clases
narration because
sociales
the
en la
legionnaires are coming from all over the
narración,
world, as I told
porque los legionarios vienen de todo
before,
el mundo,
from
como he dicho
a lot
anteriormente,
of countries,
de
and
muchos
the
países
officers are
distintos,
all
pero los
from the French
oficiales son
school,
todos
so
de
they are
la
French and
escuela de
they are
oficiales
father
francesas y
to the other
son,
strangers,
son franceses y
the
son
foreigners,
los
and
jefes de todos
so there
estos
are two
extranjeros.
couples, and the
Entonces hay
couple,
dos
a couple
parejas,
of
una
French
pareja
well-known actors,
de
and
actores
a couple
franceses muy
from
bien
Legionnaire
conocidos,
who are
y
not
la
not
pareja que es el legionario y su
not
pareja,
known
que
as
son,
the other
no
couple.
son tan
Um,
conocidos como la otra
so
pareja,
I didn't want at the
y
beginning
no quería
to
que
meet Louis Garrel for this part because
al
he's a
principio no quería
very
encontrarme con Luis
urban
Garral para esta parte
comedian,
porque
and
es un
I was
comediante
not sure he will
urbano
be able
y no
to
sabía
do the
si
job with the
ir a
physical
ver
stuff
ese
like
trabajo con los
the
requisitos
sports
físicos, con el
during
trabajo de
military
deportes
preparations or
durante,
other
por ejemplo, la
jobs.
instrucción
And
militar con los
I
legionarios, y
finally met him.
finalmente
He read the text so well
me
that I
encontré con él y leyó también el texto
made him confidence that he will
que
work
eso
on
me dio mucha
the physical
confianza,
stuff.
que
And
también trabajaría
yeah,
sobre
the
la
former
parte
Legionnaire
física, si él,
coach during 6 months before the shooting
y él,
to
él
learn
trabajó con un con un
stuff,
entrenador
and so
legionario para
he
aprender todas también las cuestiones de organización y las cuestiones
narrating
mentales,
him stories from the French
y que le
coronation and so on.
contase
And he has
historias de la
a
Legión
sports
extranjera
coach
francesa, y también
during the
un
6 months
entrenador
also.
deportivo durante
And
los 6 meses
he did
previos
military
al rodaje,
preparation during 3 days
y
because
también
it
hizo
was in France.
preparación
He
militar
slept on the
durante
floor,
varios
he
días en el
eat
sur de Francia,
biscuit
es decir,
from
durmiendo en el suelo y
combat
comiendo
little box from French army, and
y
he
comiendo
lived with
raciones
the
de la Armada
other
Francesa
men from the
y
casting,
viviendo con los otros hombres
with
que estaban
not a
en
lot
el
of sleep, not a
casting
lot of and so
y
on, and
esto
he
sin tener mucho
tried
sueño
to
y
get
sin tener
something
mucho
about
tiempo,
holisticity
simplemente para,
and
para
cohesion, because they had
conseguir un
to
poco
sing in group
siempre para dar al grupo
to
cohesión y
yeah
camaradería,
to
para
have
poder
excellence.
dar al grupo y
So
permitirles
I
que
think
pudieran hacer
for
todo
Louis
juntos. Así que para
the
Luis
most important thing
la cuestión más
apart from the body
importante,
was to meet a
aparte
lot of military
de la
men
preparación física, fue
who
conocer a muchos
yeah tell
militares
the story
que le transmitiesen, que le
and
contasen
he looked
historias
a
y le
lot and
transmitiesen
yeah this was the
la
main part of the
mentalidad
job for him and
y la forma
for
de pensar.
the
Esta fue
Russian
su
comedian Alexander Kuznetsov, who is
y,
now a
y
very
también
big star
y
also
luego también el
from
comediante ruso
we
Alexander
shoot 2 years
Kuznetsov, que
ago
ahora es una estrella, se ha convertido en una
that he
estrella.
became a very big star, but no
Desde
longer.
desde el rodaje hace 2 años se ha vuelto muy
He did
conocido. Hizo
the
mismo,
same preparation as Louis.
la
And
misma
for the women,
preparación
it was
que Luc,
a
y
lot less
para
preparation, but
las mujeres
as I wrote the book, I wanted
se
them to read
requería
about
menos
how
preparación,
the
pero había
men
un
came back
libro que yo quería
with
que leyes, que les
injuries,
hice leer, de
sometimes
cómo los
mental
hombres, sabes,
injuries.
volvían
And there
con
was
lesiones
also
o
a
con secuelas, a
documentary
veces secuelas
which is
mentales, secuelas psicológicas y
title is
también
Dad Went to the War. I don't know the correct
que,
translation, but
que es
with the
un
point of view
documental,
of
se titula
the
El
women
titán que
and
fue a
the
la guerra,
children.
desde el punto
So
de
they
vista
didn't,
de las mujeres y de
they were
sus
not able
hijos.
to meet the real family
No
because the
pudieron
French
conocer
invasion
a la
didn't
familia
help us.
concreta
When they learned that we
porque,
met a lot of families,
porque la
they
Legión
were
extranjera
really angry and they had
no
the
quisieron
family not to speak to
ayudarnos
us again.
y
So
cuando se
I
enteraron
think
de que habíamos
coming
reunido
after
con muchas familias, se
writing
enfadaron
part
mucho
was not
y
able to send them
y no quisieron que nos pusiéramos en contacto con la
Muy
familia que había
interesante el
protegido este
proceso
documental.
que
A very
explica,
interesting
explica
process.
sobre
Thank you
ello.
very much
Yo
for
quería
speaking about it.
a
And I would
Máximo
like to
preguntarle
ask Massimo Donolfi
por si
whether
una figura clave, porque dos
a
figuras
key
claves
figure or
son
two key figures for
Attila
us,
Richiuki y Germán Yanikian,
such as Attila Gijaluki and
si han
Jervan
tenido influencia
Yanikian,
de alguna
if
manera,
they had an
cuál es
impact
lo
on
que se
you
define.
and influence
Bueno,
was
Yanikian es
that
de
is
alguna manera un
Yanikian.
abuelo del festival,
It's one of the
es un
grandparents of the
cineasta muy
festival.
programado,
We have
mucho
programmed
cariño, es
him,
muy insistente. Quería
we have
preguntarle
scheduled
por las
him
relaciones del
very
grupo,
often.
puede con un latido de
And is
Yanikian
there
y
a
Richiuki en Terra y
heartbeat
Pace.
of Yanikian in Guerra y Pace?
Il lavoro di
Well, the work of,
il loro lavoro
well, their
di
work,
Luci di Giannican come quello
or
di Farocchi,
Janikan,
è
as well as
chiaramente un lavoro
Faloki,
che
is a
risuona
work that
in me.
resonates.
El trabajo de Angela Riccilucchi y de Janikian, por supuesto, que está dentro de mí,
E di Farocchi,
e di Farocchi,
And the work of Faloki too.
ma
And
sta dentro di me nella stessa misura in cui c'è Billy Wilder
and
e Lubitsch.
and it's, I mean, it's part of it with me
así
to the
como
same
está
extent as
Lubitsch
Lubitsch,
e
Billy
Billy
Wilder.
Wilder.
E quindi sì, il cinema si
And
nutre
yes,
di letteratura,
well,
di poesia,
the
di musica
cinema feeds from
vivente.
El
literature,
cine se
from
alimenta de poesía,
poetry, from
música,
wind
del
music.
viento.
Quindi sì, assolutamente sì.
And
E
so,
poi tra
yes, of
l'altro
course,
Luca
absolutely
Comerio,
yes. And
Angela
on the other
Ricciuti
hand,
e Jarvan
Luca
Giannican hanno fatto un
Comerio,
film
Lucinori,
su tutto il
and
materiale,
Janokian
una parte
have
del materiale di
done
Luca
a
Comerio perché
movie on
ritrovarono
the
in
material
una
of Luca
cantina
Comedio
in ospedale
because they found it
molto girato di Comerio di cui non se ne conosceva l'esistenza.
they found
Además,
it
Janikian y
the
Lucky encontraron
in the store area
material
of a
de Comerio del
hospital
que no se conocía
that
la
was
existencia.
previously unknown.
Quindi sì.
And so, yes.
Muchas gracias, Máximo, por
Well,
la
thank you very much,
respuesta.
Massimo, for your
Hasta que
answers.
llegó el tiempo, ahora
Well,
tendremos
we
otro
are,
café con
our time
Lemos,
is
Traducción
over.
y David Pantaleón.
We have now
Te
another
quería
film
agradecer
with David Pantaleon, Luca
esta
Bellucci, and Les
profundización, porque es
Lemos,
muy interesante
and I
las
would
películas
like
que hay
to
que recordar.
thank you,
Y sobre todo porque, por
the
suerte, tenemos siempre los
the
cafés con
filmmakers
mucho
of these
público
three
joven, no solo
films.
aquí,
In
sino
these
allá, en
coffees,
Londres,
we have
que
always a
hoy
very
hay una
young
segunda parte de
audience.
cada una de las
That
películas, si
today
alguien no la ha
we
visto,
can
espero que podáis
the film,
visitar.
all three films are
Gracias
screened
muy
again
grande a
today,
Máximo, a
and I would
Rachel
like
y a
to
Nino.
thank Massimo, Rachel, and Nino.
Grazie a
Thank
voi.
you very much.
Grazie.
colleague and member of the selection commission and friend Luis Pares, and the three protagonists of this coffee. We want to focus on the concept of space. With these are three films that work in a very original manner and very uncommon manner in the different cities, in these territories. This, they take a truly captivating dimension on the one hand. On the one hand, Ghost Song, Nicola Peruzzi, Southern Burns was already in the non-fiction. Ghost Song is sort of it's a study of it's a really immersive study of a pre-apocalyptic Houston. That's a film full of feelings, full of different rhythms, with hip hop being the beat of the mood, and Houston generates a unique space. Para Feli Lemos is the author of Holy Emmy, which portrays an Athens we have never seen before. The Philippine minority in the Greek capital, in a film that digs into fundamental issues such as beliefs and miracles, and with a dislocated a teenager that tries to find her own identity in a foreign place. And Luis is going to speak about David. The film of David Pantaleon, we found it yesterday, that's a magic film because it shows that we can invent our own traditions and what makes them real is if we put them in practice what we imagine, of always with some respect, as you respect ancient rituals, and also with an underground irony that you don't understand almost at the end of the film. But if you know David, you know that that irony is below everything, I think. And this is based on magic and the need to create daily rituals in order to recover our relations with others. I would like to ask Nicola, with his relationship with Houston, how do you make this portrait of the city that's not yours, but also, in my opinion, Houston is Ghost On is one of the most powerful portraits of the catacombs of America. And what was the process of getting to Houston and the representation of that city?
So I did the first
Bien,
movie that was
la
here
primera
that
película
is
que se
5
presentó aquí
years
en el
ago
festival hace
in
5
Houston.
años, la
It was
filmé
I
en
flashed
Houston
I felt in love with
y realmente me enamoré
the
con
people that I
la
met. So
gente que conocí.
first my the
En primer
protagonist of
lugar,
my movie
el
Southern Belle
protagonista
was my
de,
ex-girlfriend.
de mi película
So I lived a bit in
Southern Belle
Houston, and
es
she
mi
introduced me to her
antigua
family.
novia y viví
One
durante un
of
tiempo
the
en Houston y me
protagonists
presentó a la
is Will,
familia. Uno de
as
los
in the
protagonistas
movie
es
The Song
Will,
that
que,
is here.
que
And
aparece en la
I
película
was very
Ghost que está
interested
aquí
by
y
this
está muy
city that is
interesado
very
por una ciudad
conservative,
que es muy
but at the
conservadora,
same time
pero a la vez
have this very
tiene
underground punk, hip hop, a mix between hip hop,
este
subculture.
mundo, esta subcultura
They are
underground
the
con mezcla
inventor
de
of
hip
this
hop,
screw music.
es decir,
That
es
is
el inventor de esta
it's a
música
film that is
screw
influenced by
que
the
está
techno of
influida
psychedelic, and
por
it's a very
la
jazzy hip
psicodelia
hop that
y también es
sometimes it
con
can
el
be a
pop y
8
muy
minute
jazz, a
song,
veces pues una canción
and
de 8
really it's
minutos
anti-commercial
y
in the hip
realmente
hop
es
world, but they
anticomercial,
actually
es el
influence
mundo del
all of
hip hop, pero
the
influye a
the
todos
rappers that we know
los
today.
raperos que
So I was
conocemos hoy en
fascinated
día
with
y
the city. It's
entonces
very country in a
me,
way, very white,
por
but
una
it's
ciudad que
50%. The demographic is like
es una
50%
ciudad
white,
muy,
50%
muy
black. So if you're
conservadora,
in a
es
white
muy
neighborhood, you only
blanca,
see white people.
pero
In a black
la
neighborhood,
ciudad
there
es
is black.
50,
It's
50
not, it's
blancos y
completely
negros,
segregated, but
está
there's an
totalmente
extreme
segregada, en un
fascination
barrio
and an
blanco solo
extreme
ves blancos,
exchange
en
at
un
the
barrio
same
negro solo
time.
ves, pero
And for
es
me, it
muy
was more
segregada y
like
para mí
the
era mucho más
similitude
como la
between this social
similitud entre
background. I mean,
estos
the how do you say
antecedentes
the
sociales
way they
los orígenes
they
sociales, la forma en
actually
la que
have the same
tienen
rejection, the same
el
experience
mismo rechazo, la misma
of
experiencia,
addiction, the same
el-
talent of expressing
pero
themselves
también el mismo
in
talento a la hora
different
de
music
expresarse en
and
distintos
different way of doing it.
ámbitos musicales y en distintas
Gracias,
formaciones.
Nicolás.
Thank you very
Quería
much,
preguntarle a
Nicola.
Araceli
I would
cómo
like to ask Araceli
conoce,
how
cómo realmente pues,
how did
penetra en
you learn, or
una
how did you
minoría
enter or
que
get into a
confían, es decir, que
minority?
retrata, nos
As
muestra
I
una
said,
Atenas
she
insólita y al mismo tiempo
portrays
tan
an
real,
unknown
tan
Athens,
orgánica,
but
tan
at the same
palpable.
time a very
Quería
organic, a
preguntar
very
por
real Athens.
ese
I would
tipo de
like to ask
partida
you about that
también, cómo
starting, your
llegaste
starting point. How
a
did you
conocer
get to
a las
know
personas que rodean la película y
the
también
people around
el
the
proceso
film
de
and
casting,
also the casting
la elección
process
de las
and
magníficas actrices
the
presentes
choice, the
en tu película?
selection of the magnificent actresses you have in your film?
I was always aware of the Filipino community.
Yo conocía la
That
existencia de la
has a
comunidad
strong presence
filipina
in
que tiene una
Athens.
presencia muy fuerte en
Because
Atenas,
especially
porque
in all of the buses,
en
you
todos
see,
los
especially on
autobuses
Sundays,
vemos
groups of women
ves
having their
muchos
days
grupos de
off because
mujeres
many of
en
them
su día
working
libre
as
porque muchas de ellas trabajan como
helpers in the house. The
trabajan
men are
como
usually absent because
personal
they work in
doméstico
yachts or in
y
the
los
shipping
hombres
industry.
normalmente están ausentes porque
But they
trabajan
keep very much
en la
themselves.
industria naviera o
So when I
con
wrote the
tripulaciones de
story,
barcos
it
y
was initially
cuando
about these two
busqué
women
la
that I
historia, cuando
wanted them
ideé la
living
historia,
in having
era de
keeping
estas
a
dos
secret,
mujeres que mantenían
being
un
very closed off. So
secreto
I thought
y pensé
cerebrally that it would be interesting if they
cerebralmente
were part of
que
a
todos
small
que eran
tight-knit
parte de una
community where
comunidad
people
muy
come
cerrada,
and
muy
go
pequeña,
and
la gente va y
people
viene
are not like so keeping track
y que la gente no
of
se
and they're not so scrutinized as
no
like
son
Greeks
tan
are with other kids. So I placed
por
them
lo
in the
tanto no se les hace un
Filipino community, the
seguimiento.
story, and
Entonces
then I
por eso
started going to
decidí poner
see
esta historia dentro de la comunidad
uh,
filipina
if
y
it was
luego seguir
feasible to
adelante a
actually
ver si
make
era
the film with
viable
them and if they were
para hacer la
interested.
película, si estuvieran
And
interesados. Y
first of all, I discovered a
en
very
primer lugar
welcoming
descubrí una
community,
comunidad
especially their
muy
all of the
acogedora,
religious.
especialmente
The churches, they always
todas las
want new
iglesias,
members, of course.
las
But also they
confesiones, todas
liked
las
that there was
iglesias
someone
quieren nuevos miembros,
that was showing interest,
pero también había
which
mucha
I
otra gente
didn't
que mostraba
expect.
interés, que era algo que
But
no esperaba.
but the idea of actually
Pero
making a
la
film
idea de hacer una
was not
película
something that they
no
were
era
so
algo
interested
en lo
in,
que estaban muy
because
interesadas
it was like, oh,
inicialmente,
that's not a real
porque bueno, decían, bueno,
job, or
esto no es algo real, esto es algo
but I was very
que no
lucky
puede
to
ser.
discover this
Pero me
second
encantó
generation of
descubrir
Filipinas,
esta
of young
segunda generación de
people in
Filipinas,
Greece that their
de
parents
jóvenes
came to Greece, that are
de
full
jóvenes
of
filipinas nacidas en
interest and
Filipinas
want
cuyos padres habían llegado a
be
Grecia,
part
que
of
realmente estaban
things.
interesadas
And
en
I
ser
discovered
parte
Abigail at
de
the Filipino
Grecia.
School of
Y lo
Greece,
describí
and she
y
was doing the
descubrí esta
business. That's
chica
how it
en la
came to
escuela
life.
filipina de
But also,
Grecia,
I also
pero
discovered
también
that they were very, very
descubrí que
happy as
estaban
a
muy
group
contentas como grupo
to be in the film. So
de
yes,
ser
it was
parte de
like
la
a very
película.
slow process
Así
of
que fue un
trust,
proceso
and
lento
yeah,
de
and
construir
a
la
lot of
confianza y,
weekly, and persistence.
y de persistencia y de
Y
la
aquí lo que me
realidad.
gustaría
And
preguntarle a
what I
David
would like to
Pantaleón,
ask
supongo que todos
David
estamos viendo la
Pantaleon,
película,
I think
es
we
una
all
de las
have
cosas
seen
que
your
más
film,
sorprenden es
is
la
that one of the
existencia
most
no de uno,
surprising
sino
thing
de dos
is
guionistas.
the
Es
existence
decir,
of
y toda la impresión
not
que la
one
gente se hace de
playwright
una película capturada
or
desde
scriptwriters,
lo
but
real,
two of them, because it
no
seems that
tanto por la historia que se
because
cuenta, sino
not
por
as
los
much because of
espacios.
the story, but because of the
Que ha sido
spaces.
escrita en cada
It seems
espacio.
that it has
Entonces, ¿cómo
been
te
written
relacionaste
in
con la
each of the
localización?
different
¿Buscasteis
areas. So,
antes ese
what was the
espacio?
location process?
¿Escribisteis primero,
Did you find
buscasteis
it
los
first?
espacios y
Did you lo-
reescribisteis el último texto?
did you
¿Cómo ha sido
locate
esa relación
first and then you
escritura-filme?
wrote? Did you write the script and then found the location? What is the process? Well, indeed, we found the space or the place, also to see the quarry where to find the stones to build the film before we wrote the script, and that has to do with attending a goat fair that is done in uh, in Fuerteventura, which is the most important, the one in the Canary Islands. I went one day there with my brother, who's a veterinarian, and I all of a sudden discovered a world that was totally unknown to me. There was a similar component to a film festival with its backstage and everything around, which is the livestock fair, the goat fair. Instead of bringing a film, of bringing a film or presenting a film, you present a goat. But then there is also a backstage where they have the places to rest. They have also their drinks, and you have find characters such as Juan el Chapa, who is one who sings a ranchera, and he's a character that all of a sudden being at that backstage in a goat festival instead of a film festival, they they come here. These guys dressed as Mexicans, and they sing to their fans who are the goat farmers, the goat herders in
Nos
the
interesa
island.
mucho trabajar
Well, we are
hablar
very interested in these coffees. We're very interested in speaking about the creation process. And here we have to address the tempo of the three films, how the rhythm. In the case of Ghost Song, this is my opinion, this like hip hop is something that invades or pervades the rhythm of the film, a very onirical territory. I would like to speak about the edition work. How did you find that rhythm? What tempo did you want for Ghost Song?
So we
Bien,
didn't finish the
realmente no
movie that I
terminamos
planned
la
at the
película
beginning because
que
of the
yo
COVID.
tenía prevista al principio
So a lot of it
por culpa del
is
COVID.
research with
Entonces, gran
documentary,
parte
so research
es
also
investigación
used.
con documentación, que es
At the
también
end,
investigación que
my
utiliza.
plan
Hacia el
was to
final,
have
mi plan era tener,
to try something else, maybe
intentar
have
algo
them meet.
diferente,
But I realized that
pero me
maybe
di
it was
cuenta
more
que
the
quizá
movie
era
that I
más la
wanted to do
película que yo quería hacer.
was to be constructed in the editing.
Tenía que construirse el proceso de
Because
edición
this idea of
por
the
esta
hurricane that I
idea
had before,
del
that
huracán
is
que he
in
tenido
between the fiction and
anteriormente,
the
que
documentary.
está algo que está
So I
entre la
always
ficción y el
want to blur the
documental,
line in between
así que
fiction
siempre
and
quería
documentary.
hacer una línea borrosa entre lo
And
que era
I
la
think
ficción y el
the fact that we
documental,
didn't
y
manage
creo que
to
el
come
hecho de
back to
que no
finish doing
conseguimos
the
volver
movie
para
actually give
terminar de
the
filmar la película
urgency
nos
to the edit and the fact that we
supuso,
didn't have enough
supuso
of what I planned
una
before
presión para la edición y no teníamos
from
todo lo
this
que yo he previsto al principio, filmado, todo lo que yo tenía
not
planeado al principio de esta,
doing what I planned. I think I actually
y creo que el no
did
hacer
something
lo que
maybe
yo
that I
tenía
feel more like I
previsto,
want to do,
al final
more like real
me
to me.
salió algo más
And
que
this
se parecía
emergency that
más a lo
people
que
have, this
en el fondo
emergency of
quería, y
also
esta
expressing
emergencia
themselves.
y también
And this is also the
esta
psychedelic
expresión de sí
aspect with
mismo,
the music that
este
was very important for
aspecto
me to
psicodélico con la
respect
música que era muy importante
the school of Houston music.
para mostrar esta escuela de música, de la música de
En el
Houston.
caso de Holly Emi, para mí es
In the
realmente
case of
impresionante
Holy
como
Emmy,
una
for me
ópera
it's
prima, al
really
fin y al
impressive
cabo consigue una
how
narrativa tan
one
robusta,
first work
un
uh,
calibre humano
achieve
muy
such a
contundente. Y
robust
quería preguntarle
narrative.
a
And
Araceli
I would like
hasta
to
qué
ask
punto llevó el
Araceli,
montaje
to
con
what
muchas
extent did you go
dudas,
to
o si
the
ya realmente en
editing
el rodaje
with
tenía
many
muy clara
doubts,
la
or
idea de cómo
already
iba a ser
during
ese
the
corte final?
shooting you had a clear idea of what the final cut would be?
So the writing process
Bien, el
took a lot
proceso
of years.
de
So
escritura
I
del
had time
guión llevó
to
muchos
refine the
años,
story
así
a
que
bit.
tuve
Of course, until
un
the
tiempo
very
de
last
refinar
minute,
la
I was
historia bastante. Por supuesto, hasta
changing
el último
things
momento
and
estuve cambiando
replacing
cosas y
scenes with a lot of things that I
sustituyendo
would find in
escenas
the
con muchas
reality
cosas que
or in the
encontraba en
locations
la
or in the new
realidad o en
people
las
that I would meet.
localizaciones o en las nuevas personas con las
And of course,
que
I
conocía o
was
con las que
very
me
fortunate
encontraba,
to have a lot
y
of
tuve mucha
rehearsals.
suerte de tener muchos ensayos,
The goal was
y el
so that
objetivo
the
era que
non-actors would get to be
los no
familiar
actores
with
o los
the
actores los no
shooting
profesionales se familiarizasen con el
process, the
proceso
trying like to hit
de
marks. So it was kind of like
filmación, de rodaje,
rehearsal slash
así
like
que fue como un verso
preparation for the shooting day.
inverso, o
So we
sea,
had a lot of
de
time to
preparación para el
think
día
about things. So
de
when we
rodaje.
actually went to the
Así que
editing,
realmente cuando llegamos al
we
montaje
already had
ya teníamos,
things were already quite worked.
ya estaba muy trabajado
Really,
todo.
so at the editing,
Así que en
mostly
el
we crafted,
montaje
let's say, more a little bit the performance performances, but we ended up
ajustamos un poco,
changing a little bit
afinamos un
the
poco
storyline
las
or
representaciones, pero cambiamos
leaving
quizá
out
un
things that
poco
were already
del guión,
expressed
pero y
more
dejamos fuera que cosas que ya estaban expresadas de
organically,
formas
less
más
subtly, almost
orgánicas o
without
más
having to,
sutilmente,
yeah, we could take
sin
out.
tener. Así que realmente esto nos
Yes, but
permitió
we went
entresacar cosas,
pretty close to the end.
pero que estaba bastante cerca del final.
Y para terminar, le
And
quiero
just to
preguntar a
finish, I would
David
like to
también
ask
sobre el
David
proceso de
also
montaje.
on
Si hemos
the
visto no
editing
solo
process.
sus
It is
largometrajes, sino sus
we have
cortos,
seen
hay
only,
cortos muy
if you see
cartesianos,
here,
o
if you
cuasi muy
have
planos,
seen his
muy
short
pensados y
movies, well,
conceptuales.
they are very
Sin embargo, ayer
Cartesian
en la
because
conversación que
there
tuvimos
seems
dijiste
not much
que
editing.
tú
But yesterday
preferías
you said
hacer
that you
tomas
preferred
a hacer
to
planos. Es
to
decir,
to
tú haces pocos
to
planos,
to have
pero muchísimas
takes.
tomas. ¿Por qué te
There is
gusta ese
short,
formato?
very
Hasta que
many
encuentras
short
lo que
takes.
buscas o
Because
para
what's
tener
that?
lo que ves.
Until
Es
you
decir, ¿cuánto
take,
te lleva la
you
selección de
find
la
what
toma
you get,
correcta en el
or
proceso de
how
montaje?
much do you take to select the correct take in the editing process? Well, indeed, I prefer to to shoot takes than to shoot long sessions, and I'm more concerned about who is in the take that that in how to solve problems that may arise.
¿Cuántas tomas haces por regla, más o
How
menos?
many takes do you make as a rule? I cannot say. Maybe, maybe things get rolled on and you have very many and then you have less, but you have always have this component. I'm like very lazy and if I can solve it, if I can solve it quick, I would do it. But then you need a producer behind you that is more worried about you, and he's the one that opens the door and says, "Well, let's not be as limited, this limited, and since you are not going to shoot very long, let's take the time to improve slightly or to see if we can improve that is rehearsal in movie making is about to disappear in some context, and so the first takes are like an on-set rehearsal, and so taking it as that maybe the first takes are the first ones, but there is component that is if we leave some time to get more takes, there is something of that experimentation we rehearsals have, and so you, you can improve.
Bueno, no tenemos tiempo para más.
Well, we don't have time for
Agradeceros
much
la
more.
presencia.
I would
Hay
like to
seguro
thank you for
oportunidades
your
para ver las
measures.
películas.
You have again the chance to see the films again. They are
Os pido un fuerte aplauso.
Holy Emir and los Machos and Go Song, and I want to you to
Como
give
para
a big hand
David y Nicolás.
for Araceli, David, and Nicolás.